the cut. Then talk about an average hand. I mentioned some of this earlier. You hear people talk about the basic 8. No such thing. There is no basic 8. In fact, if you're picking up that basic 8 hand after hand, you won't need to know what I'm teaching in class. You'll win a very high percentage of your games. There is a basic 7. When you start really looking at it, 7.1 or 7.3 for a large number of hands is really pretty average, and 6 is a very common count. When you think about the hands you pick up, 1, 4, king, king, 2, 3, jack, jack, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a whole lot of hands that are right around 6, but they're not 8. And so then you have, when I talk average hand, 6 to 9 points. When I say I have a good hand, it's 10 to 13. And what do you call it beyond that?
Now this includes pegging, right?
No, I'm just talking about hand score here. Yeah, hopefully you'll gauge the need for pegs based on board position. But there, as a dealer, well, I won't get into that. We're going to review that this next week. Certainly, as the dealer especially, because the dealer has such an advantage on pegging. The cards you retain many times will be decided in preference to the pegging cards rather than perhaps the best potential scoring cards. For instance, you might be dealing and pick up a 4 with 2 queens and a king. Well, there's 2 points. Or you might have a 3, 4, 6, 7 with 2 kings and put the 2 kings in the crib. The 3, 4, 6, 7 represents more in terms of pegging potential than holding the 2 kings represents in terms of scoring potential. See? So, but anyway, on these figures here where I'm talking about poor hand, good hand, excellent, so on, excellent hand is 14 or more. Good hand, 10 to 13. Okay, now we kind of covered this idea where you're sitting about equal on First Street. On this 8-5 on the back of that page, you'll see some examples. Now remember, we're thinking about that Second Street zone when we're on First Street. We're not thinking about when we get to Second. Okay? Our assignment is to get there, and if we're going to get there, we need to be thinking about that sucker on First Street. So if you look here, you have the deal, you're in hole 44, your opponent is 6 holes behind you. So your opponent is 38. And if you want to do these little scenarios on your crib board, if that makes it easier, that's fine too. But you've got the deal, and you're at hole 44. And you know that critical position zone starts at 43. So you know you're where you need to be. You're dealing from where you need to be. And your opponent is probably going to be there when they have the deal. But so what are we thinking now when we're at 44? How am I going to get from 44
to 69?
Yes, exactly. See, I mean, it's important what's happening right here now. But between now and the next time I deal, I want to be on that 3rd Street critical position zone. Play in this situation with your opponent behind you, 6 points, and you're at 44, you're already in the zone, you've got the deal. You're going to play defensively, you're going to protect your advantage. And you've got to sit in there with a 16 hand. You put a 6-7 to the crib and cut a 5. Does it ever happen that way for you? A double run a face card, dump a 6-7 to the crib, and you cut a 5? Did you forget what was in your crib?
No.
Very important to remember what it is that you put in the crib, because when that 5 comes over, it ought to register that most anything guarantees you got 5 points in the crib. I don't know how you could have less than that. Maybe. Todd would probably tell me if somebody put a 1-2 in there and you cut a king, so it wouldn't be, well, we cut a 5 though. Okay, so anyway, it should occur to you that you can get on down the board quite a little piece as soon as that starter card comes up. And the advantage to you is not only to get down the board a piece, but not give many points away. Make your opponent continue to struggle. Now your opponent has the deal. They're at hole 15, 5-0. This is a different situation. Your opponent is dealing at hole 50, 5-0, and you're 15 points behind. That means you're at 35. They're dealing at 50 and you're at 35. Your objective is just the opposite of what we just talked about. The hand before, we're going to be really smug. We got a 16 hand, a 6-7 to the crib with a 5 starter card. That hand, we were really smug. This hand here, we're 15 points behind. So if you've got a potential hand of 16 points or more, go for it. Keep your best scoring potential. Try not to, again, throw a pair of 5s or 7, 8, but you know, look at your hand in terms of scoring potential. You need to make a move for it, and if you got a chance to score 16, go for it. If you play overly defensive when you're 15 points behind, you're likely to be 25 behind before long. Okay. Remember, the reason you choose to play defensive was because when you choose defense, it's because you like where you are. If you don't like where you are, then you need to take some risk. Try to go for big scoring hands if you have the potential to do that. And try to score some pegs. Now, if you have the deal, down at the bottom of that page, say you have the deal and you're both at hole 92. Now you have the deal. Remember that 4th Street position zone? You're 3 holes short. It will be to your advantage to play offensively. Pegs you take here, if your opponent leads a 4, pair it. Even if you give up 6 here, the 2 to you will be more important than your opponent gaining 6. You need to grab what you can here. Get down the board so that on your first count you have a chance to win the game. And by taking a few pegs, you might need 10 counting first, but if you don't take the pegs, you might need 13 counting first. And of course, that somehow it ended up that way printed too. Scoring a 10-point hand at the end of the game is often tough to do, but it's not as tough as scoring 13 or 14. Okay. Increase the chances to win by taking pegs. Remember your opponent. That's why I say take the peg. Remember, from 92, your opponent can't get out even if they have a 24 hand. So
If he's got the 3rd, 4th.
he might, but it is true that even though it's not likely your opponent would get out with a 24 hand, but there is possibility. But you have an advantage if you play offensively. If you play defensively when you're dealing from hole 92, you can bet you'll be at a disadvantage. Now, here at the end of the game,